Hello everybody, Darren here from Republic of Play, and this is just going to be a quick rundown of what we know about Total War Saga Troy so far, and then some opinion at the end. We don't have much footage to go by, so there's just going to be some static screenshots or trailer footage in the background, and I hope that's okay. Alright, let's begin. Total War Saga Troy has been officially announced, and there's been some interesting details coming out about it from the various media sites that have seen it. So Troy is the next Total War game set to release in 2020. If I was to make an educated guess, I'd say they're aiming for March based on the fiscal calendar and the fact that it's been in development now for at least a year from Creative Assembly Sofia. There's also the fact that Warhammer 3 is also going to be likely 2020 but later in the year, and they won't want marketing to be overlapping the two projects. Creative Assembly Sofia are developing the game. This is a studio that Creative Assembly acquired in 2017, and since then, they have created the free updates for Total War Rome 2 and 3 DLCs, the Desert Kingdoms, Empire Divided, and Rise of the Republic. No DLCs have released from them since August of 2018, so it's reasonable to assume that they are either helping with the production of 3 Kingdoms, or just working solely on Total War Saga Troy, or maybe a bit of both. So the question that seems to be dividing a part of the community is whether or not this is a historical game or not, and Creative Assembly say, quote, "Inspired by Homer's Iliad, Troy will lead you to forge a heroic legacy in the late Bronze Age, the furthest back in time the Total War franchise has ever traveled," end quote. So it seems we have another situation here where clearly something happened in history regarding the city of Troy during the Bronze Age, but Creative Assembly are focusing on a work of fiction to draw inspiration from. So no, it's not strictly historical, but yes, it is set in a historical time period. Creative Assembly are also using the marketing line of finding the truth behind the myth. When asked will there be mythical creatures, Creative Assembly state on their blog that because of the truth behind the myth approach, they are turning the Minotaurs and Centaurs and other monsters into more realistic representations of soldiers on the battlefield being painted or wearing skulls and furs and using exotic weapons. This allows them a certain degree of flexibility when it comes to unit diversity in an otherwise more limited setting. When discussing the battles, Creative Assembly say there's a strong infantry versus infantry approach to combat to reflect the period. Cavalry is near non-existent except for some chariots, and as a result, they will be working in more unit abilities and adding stances to allow you to change how your units fight. No word on actual magic or anything of that nature, though you can probably expect the buff and debuff type effects that have been present in all games since Rome 2. There will be famous heroes in the game, and 8 of them are going to be legendary, but no real discussion yet on if they all lead a faction or if they are more of a unit that you can use and have them switch factions. These heroes are similar to how they are in Warhammer and 3 Kingdoms, and PC Gamer says, quote, "Like 3 Kingdoms characters, they can take on entire units by themselves," end quote. When it comes to fighting each other, there's a new challenge ability that taunts others into 1v1 combat, creating a circular battle area around them that prevents external interference. They then begin fighting with matched combat animations, and you can exit the duel without a penalty after a certain amount of time. According to an interview from PC Games End, the game is using the latest variation of the Warhammer 2 framework, so battles are likely to play similar to that game in terms of responsiveness, collision, and charges. And that's pretty much what we know for battles so far. No word on sieges yet. The game is built off of the Warhammer framework, so it'll be interesting to see if it's surroundable sieges or if there's any other interesting mechanics at play. Sadly, there is confirmation that there will be no naval battles. Instead, naval engagements will be found on an island land battle. Whether or not there are fort battles, encampments, ambushes, or river battles, we'll have to wait and see. On the campaign, we've seen a nice flyover video setting up the story regarding the chain of events that led to the Trojan War, as well as some hints at gameplay. Creative Assembly and the media have introduced some of the concepts for campaign mechanics on their blogs and articles. First off, currency is now absent in the economy. Instead, you'll use 5 different resources for building your empire: food, wood, stone, bronze, and gold, all of which are found in different regions to varying degrees. Quote, "Food and wood are used to recruit early game units and construct simple buildings, but as the campaign progresses, more formidable structures will require stone and higher tier units will require bronze. Gold is the master resource as it is vital for trade due to its universal rarity," end quote. When it comes to diplomacy, Troy takes inspiration from 3 Kingdoms, and it'll also introduce all new diplomatic features that they have yet to speak about. The gods play an effect on the campaign too. Right now we know that the gods and favor is a new sort of system that provides buffs and rewards based on how much you devote yourself to them. Specifically, Ares, Athena, Apollo, Poseidon, Aphrodite, Hera, and Zeus are mentioned, and you'll gain or lose their opinion based on your actions. If you're favored by Ares, the god of war, your troops gain a morale boost, the idea being that if we believe in them, we ourselves will perform better. The gods are in different areas, one of them being Mount Olympus, and if you hold these areas, you gain rewards and buffs for doing so. The campaign will feature agents, such as spies and priests. Unlike Warhammer, they won't fight in the battles, but they can be used for the usual type of agent actions on the campaign. On the campaign, there's no word on how many factions, city-states, or separate rosters of units there are going to be, but we do know that there's 8 legendary heroes and they each side with either the Achaeans or the Trojans. Characters include Achilles, Agamemnon, Hector, Paris, Menelaus, Odysseus, Aeneas, and Priam. But notable omissions are Patroclus, Diomedes, Ajax, and Nestor. Creative Assembly said these could be potential DLC. Some of these characters are confirmed to have their own access to units, such as Achilles having the unique Myrmidons, and they have some mechanics on the campaign similar to 3K, with different resources that tick up or down depending on actions around those characters. Lastly, the map size is said to encompass Greece, Crete, and most of modern Turkey. There's no Egypt or Syria or the wider Mediterranean to encounter. And that's it for everything we know. Those are the facts. Now I'm going to go into opinion territory. From the footage of the campaign map flyover, I think it looks excellent. It visually pops, I really enjoy the stylized mythical approach that they're taking, and I think it works well for a time period that has so much mystery to it. I think generally the premise of the Trojan War being the setting for a Total War game is quite cool, and I like the hyper-focused map. Though it may seem small in scale, the island of Crete, when I counted it, seemingly has around 10 settlements on it, so in terms of geometry, physical scale on the map, it is quite large. Now, the premise of removing cash and using more practical in-world resources is excellent. I love the sound of that, and I look forward to seeing how that manifests itself. Hopefully, the AI don't just cheat like crazy and obtain the resources that they don't even occupy. The gods stuff sounds good and reminds me a little bit of the Norscan gods in Warhammer, and without seeing it, I can just say I hope that it's dynamic and engaging and not just 1 or 2 event messages that pop every now and then. So, what am I not so hot about? Well, the absence of naval battles is obviously quite the blow, and I know that there isn't much record of them taking place, but I just can't help but feel it's a cop-out to use Warhammer 2's system of just fighting land battles at sea. On the personal side, I'm not a fan of character-centric games like this. I think they are inherently less replayable, and over-the-top heroes that can take on entire units takes me out of the experience. To me, that style of combat isn't immersive or engaging, but it's instead very arcadey and gamey, so of course to me that is just a bit disappointing. And remember, we're in opinion territory. My opinion is not your reality. The game seems like it's trying to have its cake and eat it too, by saying that it's focusing on the truth behind the myth, by having no real monsters or gods on the battlefield, yet it also has characters that can kill 500 people. That sounds to me like, well, this is a saga budget, so we're not going to be making monsters, but the legendary lords are cool and we'll focus on them. Some may argue that the book talks about Achilles killing lots of people, but Creative Assembly say they're trying to focus on the truth behind the myth. In the movie, Achilles only kills 27 people, and the whole thing was a pretty grounded approach to that war that basically did focus on the truth behind the myth. Something like that would be much more preferable to me. On top of that, single entity Lord combat always looks visually really bad in Total War games. They get sprayed with arrows and they keep running, so it's just a little bit hard for me to get excited. I would probably just like it if Achilles was in a bodyguard unit of Myrmidons and they were just some sort of elite unit. So we haven't seen how the combat looks, but that's just something I always yearn for. A more grounded and realistic take on battles that at least let you get attached to the soldier on the ground and imagine what it would have been like. Whether it be fantasy, mythology, or reality, everyone, all players would benefit from being able to relate to the soldiers a little bit more, and the way that could be achieved is if they have a bit more attention to detail in their combat animations and how they connect with each other, and it's not so over the top. Now, they removed matched combat for Warhammer, citing it was because of the monsters and stuff, but it hasn't come back with Three Kingdoms or this game. I've always wanted the system to be improved and not abandoned. All in all, I don't want to be negative. What they've shown looks good. I've basically just put it out of my head now that this is a Total War game, and that lets me enjoy it a hell of a lot more. I'm eager to see how the lords will differ from each other, the scale of the battles, the sieges, and whether or not this type of saga game is really viable. Creative Assembly seems to have learned from Thrones, as they now have a way bigger budget and a whole studio on the project rather than a small internal team as before. So for those out there thinking this will just be Thrones 2, I think that's an unfair expectation just based off of the fact that this has the name Saga in the title. Visually, this looks quite different from the other Total War games, and that already places it way higher in terms of potential than Thrones ever did. So, those are my thoughts on it. I think it's got the potential to be a good strategy game. It's not necessarily what I want from Total War, but that's just me. I realize it's a little bit selfish to say they should cater just to my tastes, but it is what got me into the franchise to begin with. I reviewed Three Kingdoms and I said it was a very good game, but after 1 or 2 campaigns, I don't play it anymore. Now, this is probably going to be a similar situation. Let me know what you think about the game in the comments below, and the announcement really rather, because we haven't played it yet. I'll be following this game's progress and giving you updates where I can, but I don't get stuff early, as you know, so I'm always just a little bit late with it. Either way, I appreciate the support, and if you want to see more coverage of Troy, consider supporting on Patreon and getting involved with Republic of Play. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next one.